July 1, 2025, the end of financial illusion, the era of hard money begins. The countdown is over. As of July 1, 2025, the financial world takes a definitive step towards a new paradigm. Sound money, backed by real assets, begins to replace the speculative system that has ruled the markets for decades. And at the center of this historic shift is gold. But not just any gold. We're talking about the transition from paper gold to physical, registered, traceable, and auditable gold. Stay with me until the end, and you'll understand why this shift could liberate economies, redefine banking systems, and transform your future. For decades, the precious metals market has been dominated by derivatives and futures trading. The so-called paper gold, traded especially through the Comex system, allowed large volumes of gold to be traded without the metal even physically existing. This system favored speculation, creating an environment of manipulated and distorted prices, far from the reality of physical gold. But now, in 2025, this structure is beginning to crumble. Governments and financial institutions are migrating to a more transparent model, based on real assets, the so-called real-world assets, or RWAs. This transition is directly aligned with the new international regulatory standards, and this is where the Basel III framework comes in. Basel III and the new rules of the game. The Basel III Agreement represents one of the most important reforms of the global financial system after the 2008 crisis. And one of the most impactful updates is precisely the recognition of physical gold as a zero-risk asset. In other words, for banks, gold now has the same weight as cash in terms of capital requirements. This means that gold is now considered a high-quality liquid asset, which drives its adoption as a reserve, as collateral for loans, and as a basis for bank liquidity. In other words, it becomes currency again, but with security, traceability, and international support. The banking system and real demand. With the new standard coming into effect on July 1st, all bank transactions involving gold will require real liquidity. In other words, it will no longer be possible to move millions in virtual gold. Now, for each transaction, it will be necessary to prove the physical existence of the asset. This movement is revolutionary, because for the first time in decades, the demand for gold will be organic, real, and constant, directly integrating the financial system. And the impact of this will be immediate: greater appreciation of the metal, stability of backed currencies, and strengthening of economies that have real physical reserves. The end of illusion and the beginning of sovereignty. The end of paper gold represents the end of an era of illusion. Unbridled speculation and a system based on promises are beginning to give way to the reality of tangible assets. And with that, the door opens to a new economic model, one that is fairer, more balanced, and above all, sovereign. Little by little, we will see the collapse of the artificial control exercised by entities that manipulated the value of assets without ever owning them. If you've made it this far, congratulations. You're among those who seek to understand what's really behind the headlines and international agreements. Now you know why July 1st marks more than a financial change. It ushers in a new era of trust and monetary solidity. Gold, this ancient asset, is once again fulfilling its role to free economies, preserve value, and protect the future. Subscribe, activate the bell, and share this content with those who need to understand what is really changing in the world. The era of solid money has already begun. Are you ready?